No one mourns the wicked. And if you were to guess, what scale degree do you think that A sharp is in the key of E major? It's the sharp 4 again. We're using the Lydian mode. But it doesn't sound especially whimsical or light. And that's because the secret about the Lydian sharp 4 is that it's also a tritone, the most dissonant interval you can find in Western music. This is so genius. Hi, my name is Alex. I'm a musician and composer, and today I'm going to be breaking down the score of Wicked, the musical, the movie, specifically 2 songs, the opening of Act 1, No One Mourns the Wicked, and the closing of Act 1, Defying Gravity. Stephen Schwartz is a master composer and is able to put so much story and narrative drive into all of his music. I'm really excited to talk about this. So we're at the opening number, and I think this is one of the all-time great musical openings. It does everything an opening number should do. Mainly, it conveys the themes and pretty much the whole plot of the show, condensed into the smallest recognizable musical pieces. Throughout the score, we see a ton of dissonance and specific ranges that showcase how Elphaba is judged and grounded by the people around her, all while she just wants to rise above it. The first notes we hear are Elphaba's theme, but Elphaba actually has 2 different themes throughout the show. The Elphaba theme, or her actual character theme, which plays during moments of self-realization and determination, and then we have the Wicked Witch theme. This theme plays when we are showing Elphaba, but perceived by the people around her, the other people in Oz. As we all know, she eventually becomes the Wicked Witch, so it's terrifying, it's a contorted version of the real theme, and it sounds like this. And even within those first 4 bars, the story of the show is already being told. Even though the theme is twisted, we are still rising in the melody. But society, as we come to find out, keeps bringing Elphaba down. We are hearing Elphaba trying to break through society's perception of her, but to no avail. Constantly being brought down by a world that won't listen. They're literally keeping her down. After that, we get a really cool, ominous walk down. And this kicks off one of the best musical devices Stephen Schwartz uses throughout all of Wicked, modulation. Modulation, or to modulate, just means we're going from one key to another within the same piece of music. In this case, we're going from A minor to B major. This can add a lot of drama to the music. The audience isn't expecting these crazy chord changes, so we're immediately caught off guard. But at the same time, it also provides a feeling of floating, like we're never really grounded in a certain key. At any point, we could go somewhere else. Almost like we were floating or levitating. Then we get this chord. Okay, there's a lot going on. On paper, this is an E9 with a bunch of extensions. We have the 7th, 9th, and we also have what would be our sharp 4. To play a sharp 4 in this chord implies we're using the Lydian mode, or the brightest mode of the major scale. This again adds to this feeling of floating, never being grounded sort of feeling. This is a favorite mode of film scores and a lot of movie musicals. And that interval is the key to what makes Wicked work. Here's without the sharp 4. Good, but not nearly as longing as... That just sounds like Wicked to me, you know? And the same Lydian sound is emphasized again with the ostinato that plays right after. Then the actual melody starts to play, and we get our first unlimited theme. Stephen Schwartz has talked a lot about this melody being one of the first things he came up with for Wicked, because it's actually based off The Wizard of Oz, specifically the song Somewhere Over the Rainbow. If we take the notes of that song, somewhere over the rainbow, those first few notes are the exact same notes of Unlimited. Stephen Schwartz wanted to pay homage to The Wizard of Oz while also making the theme something more than what it was. In the case of The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy is longing for somewhere she can't reach. She is reaching out to somewhere she doesn't even know. The octave jump at the beginning is a pretty wide interval. Most songs don't have you singing more than an octave. So this really showcases sonically how far away her wants are. And this is echoed in Elphaba's use of the same jump. Unlimited. Not only do we know that Elphaba literally flies later, so this huge jump up has a ton of text pain and goodness in it, but we also notice it falls after, foreshadowing that things may not go her way. Spoilers. I also like the little detail in the movie that when this theme started playing, the camera was zooming past a rainbow. That was a really nice touch. We get introduced to Munchkinland with a very Wizard of Oz sounding fanfare, again paying homage to the original without being too in your face. Very nice. And then we get the first sung lines of the show. Good news! Yikes. We're hit right off the bat with even more dissonance. One, we start with another jump down, again mimicking the beginning of the show. Then we have a C major chord with an E major chord stacked on top, providing a ton more dissonance. Two major triads, traditionally happy sounding chords, stacked on top of each other, can sound really bright but also really unnerving. And this dissonance happens right on the word good news. This subconsciously lets the audience know that something is up, and what the ensemble is claiming is good may not actually be right. Next, we get some chord stabs as the ensemble keeps singing. The singers go down to a unison line, but there is still a lot of crunchy dissonance in the accompaniment. The wickedest witch there ever was, the enemy of all of us here in Oz, is dead. I really like this one part where it's written to basically just slam your hand against the piano. I would have way too much fun playing the show. After the Munchkins sing about celebrating the death of Elphaba, Glinda flies down and she gets a verse. The biggest thing to note here is the actual range that Glinda is singing. While still being musical theater, Glinda traditionally has a more coloratura, classical soprano sort of sound. What that basically means is that she is singing really, really high and it should sound really, really effortless. Think Queen of the Night by Mozart. Knowing that the story is about Elphaba constantly trying to rise above her situation, this makes Glinda the perfect foil to her character. Everything that Elphaba wants, respect, a good reputation, things she constantly works so hard to achieve, come so naturally to Glinda. And the actual notes she sings are important. Let us be glad, let us be grateful. Her first few notes jump a major sixth, noticeably less than the octave jump in Unlimited. But as Glinda keeps singing, she eventually rises high above the staff, and does so over and over again in succession, like it's nothing. Because to her, it is. Again, painting the difference between Elphaba and Glinda. Now, you can also argue that this Glinda has the knowledge of the rest of the show. So she's only able to do this after acquiring the knowledge of spoilers that I won't get into here. But I think the cool thing about this passage is that you can read it either way and it still makes sense. And then No One Mourns the Wicked officially starts. And there is a lot going on, so let's get into it. First, we get the melody sung by the Munchkins in perfect fifths. No one mourns the wicked. The interval of a perfect fifth is really wide and is reminiscent of old church music. Think Gregorian chant. This is making the words sung by the Munchkins seem predestined and prophetic. And this comes back not only at the end of Act 1 in Defying Gravity, but a few times in Act 2 as well, when the ensemble acts as a narrator to the audience. Stephen Schwartz collaborated with Alan Menken on The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and I think he's pulling from that sound quite a bit in this section. Next, we have our chorus, where Glinda sings, "And goodness knows." And when we get to the final line, "You're left only on your own," we get another ascending arpeggio. It just shows when you're wicked, you're left only. With that Lydian sound again. That sharp 4. This is a direct reference to Elphaba and in turn shows the audience how Glinda and how they should feel about the situation. The next section is a flashback that takes us to Elphaba being born, her mother dying, and generally all the stuff that set us up to be at the actual beginning of the show. And what I really like is that Stephen Schwartz decides that we just need a key change and throws one in. Nothing grows for the wicked, they reap only what they sow. This is something Stephen Schwartz does all the time in his music. Super abrupt key changes that seem to be for no reason, but upon closer inspection, they actually make a lot of sense. We've already established that the music in Wicked is supposed to feel floating. The use of ascending arpeggios and that Lydian sound. And this is just another way to do that. By constantly shifting the key of a song, it feels like we are always in a new place, never really settling down. This also makes the pacing feel faster and the music more energetic. It's not always about more energy though. Stephen Schwartz uses key changes to strategically map out the energy of every song in the show. In this example, we're going from a huge full chorus opening number to a quaint little flashback. So by moving the key down from E major to A flat, we are pulling back the energy while still giving the audience something new to listen to. And I may be reading a little into this, but the key change from E to A flat sounds very reminiscent of the first opening chords of The Wizard and I, but sort of in reverse. Maybe because we're going back in time, we play the chords in reverse? I don't really know. After that, we get some fun music for the mysterious stranger that Elphaba's mother meets. We get the whole birthing sequence. When Elphaba is born, we hear the Wicked Witch theme again because everyone is horrified by the color of her skin. And then we transition back to the proper ending of No One Mourns the Wicked. No one mourns the wicked. The key of the ending section is noticeably higher than it was before, meaning that everybody, including Glinda, is singing much higher than they were. To me, this solidifies that Glinda is putting on a show for the Munchkins and is far above celebrating the death of anyone, let alone her best friend. And then the best part of the song happens. At the very end, the entire ensemble one last time sings No One Mourns the Wicked, and it's held on this beautiful consonant E major chord, except for an A sharp that is hammered in the bass range after every proclamation. No one mourns the wicked, wicked. And if you were to guess, what scale degree do you think that A sharp is in the key of E major? It's the sharp 4 again. We're using the Lydian mode, but it doesn't sound especially whimsical or light. And that's because the secret about the Lydian sharp 4 is that it's also a tritone, the most dissonant interval you can find in Western music. This is so genius. Throughout the entire number, we've used the alteration to this scale to symbolize Elphaba's rising above societal pressures and her journey of self-discovery. But we know how the story ends. Elphaba doesn't achieve what she wants. She doesn't win. They brought her back down. So now her note, that sharp 4, is ringing below, muddying up the harmony that would be found if she were not there. This song tells you the entire story you're about to watch, which is what I think all great opening numbers should do. Not to mention in the movie, Glinda opts up to a high E at the end, so that tritone between the A sharp and the E is directly sung by those two characters. But the coolest thing about dissonance is that the farther apart notes get, the less dissonant they sound. If we played those two notes right on top of each other, there's no doubt that's really dissonant. But by spreading it out so far apart, it's a lot less harsh. Maybe not totally at rest, but that's because the two characters never did fully see eye to eye. And that's sort of the whole point of the story. Okay, and that is No One Mourns the Wicked. Let's move on to Defying Gravity, the closing of Act 1. Defying Gravity is probably the most famous song in Wicked. It's a classic musical theater power ballad. And in context, it does so many musical things that we've been playing with throughout the entire score, culminating in this moment. The song opens with short stabs in the orchestra under Elphaba and Glinda fighting. I hope you're happy. I hope you're happy now. I hope you're happy how you hurt your cause forever. I hope you think you're clever. We're moving chromatically up and down. Again, never really settling in on a specific key, which is directly paralleling the fight. They're going around in circles, blaming each other. And then we land on the final, I hope you're happy. We get this really dissonant, diminished sounding chord, which definitely sounds like they are not happy. But then we do resolve right into Elphaba's theme. Her real theme, not the Wicked Witch theme. I hope you're happy right now. After that, we get some dialogue, but underneath the dialogue, Elphaba's theme is still playing. Then we change keys from B flat to E major. We're still playing the same thing. It's still Elphaba's theme, but again, we're adding something different, making the audience feel like we're never really settled. Now the theme just feels brighter and more grand. Something has changed within it, you might say. We also get a modified version of the Unlimited theme, which is foreshadowing Elphaba's eventual ascent away from Oz. After that, Glinda tries to convince Elphaba again to stay with the wizard and stay in the life that she always wanted. And what I really like about this is that the chords that are playing are the same ones that play during The Wizard and I, Elphaba's I Want song earlier in the show. Glinda is reminding Elphaba of all that she worked for, and we are being sonically reminded of what that sounded like. You can still be with the wizard, what you've worked and waited for. You can have all you ever wanted, but I don't want it. I can't want it anymore. And just before Elphaba's about to sing, we change keys from E major down to D flat. Even though the score has revolved entirely around this feeling of floating and rising, this shows the audience that Elphaba is grounded in her decision, and makes her eventual ascent throughout the song, and literally at the end of Act 1, even more satisfying. This also sets up our main key throughout the song, which is D flat. As you'll see, Stephen Schwartz takes us all around to a bunch of different keys, but we always return to this home key. And the way he does that is genius. We'll talk about it later. Elphaba starts to sing, and she's accompanied by these super wide intervals in the orchestra. Something has changed within me. Something is not the same. This is not only super evocative of a wide open sky, but it also just feels really good to play on the piano. Stephen Schwartz has said that when he was writing the song, he put it in D flat because that's his favorite key on the piano. And the reason it's his favorite key is because it sounds super open and powerful, which is exactly what Elphaba is feeling in this moment. This sort of reminds me of George Gershwin, how he would only play things in F sharp, and I think that's really interesting. I've got my own set of keys that I like to write everything in, so it's good to see that I'm not alone. And then we add on this really strong moving ostinato as we enter into the first chorus of the song. It's time to try defying gravity. The next plot point in the song is Elphaba trying to convince Glinda to follow her and leave Oz to bring justice to the land. After another quick key change, our Unlimited theme plays, and we actually get it sung. Unlimited, together we're This moment has been building up from the very beginning of the show, and to finally get the theme realized here at the climax of Act 1 is so satisfying. It's also important to know that while Elphaba is the one singing the theme, she is singing trying to convince Glinda that they are unlimited together, not separately in what they're trying to do. A sort of foreshadowing that Elphaba alone is not strong enough to accomplish all of her goals. Then we get another perfect example of how to use key changes effectively in a piece of music. We are currently in the key of G flat, which is lower than our home key of D flat, so when we jump back up, it sounds like we've gained so much more energy, even though everything is the same, the ranges and notes of the singers. The orchestration more or less is all the same. But because we have context, it feels like the energy just keeps getting higher. There isn't anything super metaphorical or narrative about this choice, but I just think it's a really smart technical move. If you can keep your singers in a nice healthy range, but make the audience feel like they've gone up a level in dynamic and energy, that's a win for everybody. There's no fire we cannot win, just you and I defying gravity. After Elphaba and Glinda have their power duet, we have a return of the chords from the very beginning of the song, but this time they are played very smooth and sustained, showing that the fight is over and they have reconciled their friendship, as much as it can be given the circumstances. This time, when we get to the end of the phrase, "I hope you're happy, my friend," we end on a C major with a sharp 4, a much more consonant interval, and again we have that Lydian, raising, wonderful sound again. I hope you're happy in the end. I hope you're happy, my friend. Two key changes and a lot of dialogue later, we get to the end of the song. And I don't know if you're ready for this. So we're on a vamp playing Elphaba's theme again in B major. Elphaba sings as she finally takes to the sky and proclaims that no one is going to bring her down. And then we get a return of the Wicked Witch theme as the wizard and all of his guards look upon Elphaba with fear and disgust as she flies above them. And nobody in all of Oz, no wizard that there is or was, is ever gonna bring me down. The ensemble sings in open fifths, again reminiscent of that church prophetic sort of sound. Look at her, she's wicked, get her! And as we get to the climax of the song, this happens. So we've got to bring her. That is a C major chord in the lower register with a B major chord up high. This is incredibly dissonant and represents the distance not only physically between Elphaba and the rest of Oz, but the distance between their ideals as well. Elphaba has just learned that everything she ever hoped for was a total lie. Her hero, the wizard, is not only a fraud, but directly responsible for all the injustice happening to the animals in Oz. Her entire world has been shifted upside down, but she knows she has to keep rising above it, despite everyone and everything trying to pull her down. And then, finally, we get a huge D-flat chord, bringing us not only to the end of Defying Gravity, but to the end of Act 1 of Wicked. Of course, we also get the iconic Elphaba riff. Now, if you know anything about Wicked, you know that every person who plays Elphaba gets to choose their own riff to sing at the end of Defying Gravity. And I'm usually not one for super crazy riffs showing off how technically skilled a singer is. But in this case, again, it makes sense. After the entire act of being put down again and again, Elphaba finally, just for a glimpse of a moment, feels free. She's flying above everyone, about to leave untethered by the weight that's been grounding her. So she lets out a cry of freedom, of rebellion. And having each individual actor add their own say to what that sounds like, I think is really, really cool. And that is the end of Defying Gravity. I hope you enjoyed this musical analysis. I love breaking down how music works, especially music for the stage. There's just something so special about its ability to tell a story alongside other art forms like acting, dancing, lighting, and it's super inspiring to really dive into a score that I respect a lot. I'm getting so many ideas that I can grab onto and use in my own compositions. If you like this video, please give it a like. If all goes well, this video is coming out the day that Wicked for Good should be released in theaters, so hopefully I can ride the train of popularity. I'm trying to get to 10,000 subscribers by the end of this year, so that would be super, super helpful. Subscribe for more music analysis and my own original project. You can watch shows that I've written right now, where I use the same ideas I'm talking about in this video. Until next time, make music, tell stories. I'll see you in the next one.